Welcome to On This Day in History. Today, we journey back to June 24th, 1812, a date that marks the beginning of one of the most audacious and ultimately disastrous military campaigns in human history, Napoleon Bonaparte's invasion of Russia. At the height of his power, with an empire spanning much of Europe, Napoleon aimed to crush Russia's defiance and solidify his continental system. What began as an unparalleled display of military might would soon become a chilling testament to the unforgiving nature of a vast land and the brutal resilience of its people. Gathered on Russia's western frontier was the Grande Armée, a force truly grand in name and scale. Numbering over 500,000 men, an unprecedented army in European history. It was a multinational behemoth, comprising not just French soldiers, but conscripts and allies from across Napoleon's empire: Poles, Germans, Italians, Austrians, and more. Equipped with vast supplies, thousands of cannons, and hundreds of thousands of horses, it was believed to be an invincible force, destined for swift victory and a decisive battle that would bring Tsar Alexander I to heel. On this day, June 24th, 1812, the lead elements of the Grande Armée began crossing the Nieman River into Russia. It was a logistical marvel, with bridges spanning the wide river under the watchful eyes of Napoleon himself. The invasion was rapid, deep into Russian territory, as Napoleon sought the swift, decisive engagement that had been his hallmark in previous campaigns. However, the Russians, under generals like Barclay de Tolly and later Kutuzov, refused to offer the pitched battle Napoleon craved. Instead, they adopted a strategy that would prove devastating. The Russian strategy was one of prolonged retreat and scorched earth. As the Grande Armée advanced, the Russians systematically destroyed crops, burned villages, and evacuated populations, leaving little behind for the invaders to forage. This left Napoleon's massive army, accustomed to living off the land, increasingly dependent on stretched and inadequate supply lines. Disease, exhaustion from relentless marching, and starvation began to take a far heavier toll than any Russian bullets, decimating the Grande Armée even before major confrontations. Despite the relentless retreat, a major engagement finally occurred on September 7, 1812, at Borodino, just 70 miles west of Moscow. This was the bloodiest single day of the Napoleonic Wars. Over 250,000 soldiers clashed in a brutal, artillery-heavy battle that resulted in staggering casualties on both sides, estimated at 70,000 to 80,000 in total. While Napoleon claimed a tactical victory as the Russians eventually withdrew, it was a Pyrrhic one. The Russian army, though mauled, remained intact, and Napoleon had failed to achieve the decisive victory he desperately needed. A week after Borodino, on September 14, 1812, Napoleon and his exhausted army marched into Moscow, expecting to find a city ready to surrender. Instead, they found it eerily deserted. Most of its inhabitants had evacuated, and soon after Napoleon's entry, a massive fire erupted. Whether accidental or deliberately set by Russian patriots, the burning of Moscow raged for days, consuming 3/4 of the city. Napoleon spent over a month in the smoldering ruins, waiting for Tsar Alexander to offer peace, an offer that never came. Faced with a desolate, burning city, dwindling supplies, and the ominous approach of the infamous Russian winter, Napoleon made the fateful decision to retreat on October 19, 1812. What followed was one of the most catastrophic military disasters in history. The Grande Armée, already weakened by disease and starvation, now faced an even more merciless foe, the brutal Russian winter. Temperatures plummeted to deadly lows, blizzards raged, and supplies utterly collapsed. Thousands of soldiers succumbed to frostbite, starvation, and exposure, their bodies littering the icy roads. The retreat became a harrowing death march, continuously harried by Cossacks and Russian partisans. Discipline broke down, and the once Grand Army dissolved into desperate bands of stragglers. The Berezina River crossing in late November became a horrific bottleneck, where thousands more perished attempting to cross icy, makeshift bridges under relentless Russian artillery fire and attacks. It was a desperate escape, a testament to sheer will, but costing untold lives. By the time the shattered remnants of the Grande Armée stumbled back across the Neman River in December 1812, only a mere fraction, perhaps 100,000 out of the initial 500,000, remained. Hundreds of thousands had perished due to disease, starvation, cold, and combat. Napoleon's aura of invincibility was shattered. The disastrous Russian campaign irrevocably weakened his empire, fueled defiance across Europe, and set in motion a chain of events that would lead to his eventual downfall and final defeat just a few years later. The invasion of Russia in 1812 remains a sobering lesson in military hubris, logistical challenges, and the devastating power of a nation's resolve combined with its unforgiving environment. It was the beginning of the end for Napoleon's continental domination, etching June 24th into history as the day ambition clashed with an unyielding reality. For more deep dives into pivotal historical moments, make sure to follow us.